Let's start that conversation. We'd like to hear from you. Send in all your questions at Trevor Mbija at Koinange Jeff. Use the hashtag JKLIVE. My guests are already in studio. Thank you so much for making time. The one of the only 4 presidential candidates that have been cleared by IBC. That's Roots Party, Professor George Wajackoyah, and his running mate, Justina Wangoi Wamai. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening.
Thank you.
And Prof, I'll start with you. So an opinion poll has just been released by InfoTrack. Raila Odinga 42%, William Ruto 38%, 20% of Kenyans undecided. The two of you don't show up in any of that ranking.
I don't like that company. And when I become the president, if I will find out that it has violated the constitution of the people of Kenya by not really doing what the Kenyans want, I will send them packing.
How would you send them packing just because you don't like them? That is a violation of their rights. It's a company that is fully organized, fully operational, has all their licenses. If you disagree with the company as a president, will you send them packing?
Let me tell you this. I'm a lawyer of very high repute. And I don't just practice in Kenya only. I practice in the US. I practice in the UK. And I'm also a practitioner at the European Human Rights Court. If those people were in UK today, public opinion would have prevailed against them. The voters would have questioned the integrity as to why they only choose those two. In UK, you choose everybody. You put everybody, even if someone gets a 0. They are notoriously known to be side takers. And that's why in this one, I will agree with the deputy president for the first time for having rubbished them. They should actually be on notice that there is a new boy, a new player on the block who takes no nonsense, but takes Kenyans' interests at heart.
So if a company goes against your wish as a presidential candidate or as a president, should Kenyans elect you, it will be shut down?
I want to tell you this categorically, Mr. Mbija. What I've said is I've looked at the humanity, and I'm looking at the humanity. How would you have a wife with 10 children, and then you just favor 2? You don't favor the rest. Does it mean that if your child is incapacitated, is disabled, he's not your child? We are all Kenyans. They are in Kenya. They are a living entity where they should not be seen to be taking sides. Okay. We have had 55 presidential candidates. Unfortunately, some of my colleagues did not make it on board. I am with them wherever they are. But they should actually bring on board everybody. Okay. But if they are coming in with this substandard kind of scientific experiences, which do not look into others, I am putting them on notice that if I become the president, the rule of law will prevail and fundamental principles of this country shall be taken into account by any foreign company that comes to work in this country.
Okay. But Justina, what are your thoughts on that? Because the question was not out of the 4 of you. The question was, who would you vote for if elections were held today?
Thank you, Trevor, for that question. I look at it from right now. They told us that the data collection model was through phones, computerized phone. So this, being on JKL, will enable us to speak into our support base and tell them that what you have to offer as a Roots Party government. So this is part of creating awareness. Probably when they were asking them, they would not have known about us, but this is an educational session. It's a sensitization session. It's a creating awareness session. So I'm sure by the time they do the poll again, our people will be in the know of what Roots has to offer.
But do you support closing companies that you deem not to be friendly?
Well,
and I'm not trying to put you against your presidential candidate, because I know you have your own views as well.
Like I said, many of these foreign companies that come into this country, we hear there's so much corruption they have to contend with. They have to align with people in power. So we understand their situation. And for us, we're telling them, we will not compel you to take sides. We respect everyone's view. So don't be so scared. I know right now maybe they're being pushed by those in power to give these skewed results. But for us, it will be a government that will allow being criticized. So the thing is, we won't really throw them out. We're going to give them a conducive environment, not to feel compelled to support those in power.
Okay.
Yes.
Prof, Parliament has just raised the national debt ceiling from 9 trillion to 10 trillion. As one of the people running for president, How would you deal with this? And what is your view, first of all, of raising the debt ceiling?
The issue of raising the debt ceiling is not going to be there because you have the solution. And that solution is in growing marijuana, which will enable this country to clear off all the outstanding debts, pay off the debts, have enough money for all Kenyans wherever they will be, either inside the country or outside the country, so that we can sustain and arrest the situation before it comes out.
So what is your projected revenue from marijuana?
Well, if one sack of marijuana, and I'm not talking of those sacks that you see people carrying on, there is special sacks of marijuana which are scientifically made for marijuana. And if one sack of marijuana is $3.2 million US, one sack of marijuana, $3.2 million US, if you convert that into Kenyan currency, and if you grow 1,000 acres of land for marijuana, and you harvest more than 1,000 bags of marijuana, then definitely.
What you're talking about, Prof, is illegal.
Yes, it is illegal.
So how do you want to convert this? In a country that is reeling from debt, you know very well that our debt right now is at 8.2 trillion shillings against a nominal GDP of 10.7 trillion shillings, meaning for every 10 shillings, we have to pay back 7 shillings. And you're telling me that marijuana will sort this out?
You know, I'm not that stupid. Just look at me and look into my eyes, Mr. Trevor Mbeja.
I am.
I'm talking of legalization of the product. Once we legalize, that is going to be the position. And should we be given the mandate to legalize marijuana, that is where we are starting our point. I'm not talking of it right now. I'm talking of it after we win the elections and I become the president and my deputy becomes.
But even if you legalize it, where are you going to import it to?
Well, that's a good question. I think you should also do better research. To export it to or to import it from? You said to import it to. We are going to export it, not to import it. We are going to grow it and export it. I just returned from the United States and Canada during my recent tour. And trust me, there are so many companies in the US that have their hanging out and telling me, please, we have the ready market here. Canada last year alone had got $487 billion US out of marijuana. The United States 2 weeks ago decriminalized marijuana from being a federal offense. We have 22 states in the US that are now officially growing marijuana. The market is there. Israel, the biggest grower of marijuana in the world, has that market, and that's why they actually flew over to Uganda and made an agreement with the Ugandan government to grow marijuana. Currently, they are growing 152,000 acres of land in marijuana. Rwanda has legalized the product. Zimbabwe just legalized the other day. Malawi is now asking, the president of Malawi is now asking Malawians to approve tobacco plants because of the inadequacy of finances that come as a result of that to grow marijuana. South Africa did it, and Morocco is doing it. So the market is really ready and available.
So, Prof,
yes.
What do you say to a woman who just texted you saying, Bangi has destroyed my son's life? He was a normal young man performing well in school, but Bangi has taken away his youth, and now at 23, he does nothing with his life, a liability to himself and the whole family. It pains me deeply when people joke about weed. What do you say to that?
Thank you very much. In fact, it should have been classified in the following manner. I do sympathize with her. I do sympathize with her, just like I sympathize with those who are in Madare Valley, just like I sympathize with those drug addicts who are in rehabilitation centers, just as I sympathize with those rich men who drink whiskey and make accidents on the road. So there is no exception. We should not actually be selective to say, oh, it's only marijuana. Abuse of anything is serious. Violation of something is serious. So I do sympathize with her. It's one of those cases, just like even in men who marry more than 20 wives and spread to all of them HIV. Do we need actually to tell them, or do we need to sacrifice them because of the disease? That's just an unfortunate situation. And because of classical war that we have, a class war that we have between the people who wear suits and those who do not wear suits, those who wear suits and make decisions from outside the country, copy and paste. Those who wear suits and go to some of these big religious places of worship, and I'm not saying every religious worship, they come up with this segmented and this instrumental kind of approach, where they say, this is wrong, this is bad. I carry my child to school in the morning in a bus. Another one in Madare Valley walks to school barefooted.
All right.
So the issue here is we have a class war, and we have a decolonization and recolonized minds. And I'm not talking of that particular lady. Everything has to be regulated. Everything has to be observed. Standards have to be set. Because if you look at that, the US, which has legalized, or Jamaica, which has legalized marijuana, which has got the least number of mad people as compared to 3 million patients we have in Kenya, in Kenyan environment, whereby at least 25% of that 3 million people receive medication as outpatient from Madare Hospital. So that's how it is.
Trevor,
yes, come
quickly get into that and underpin what Professor is saying about the debt ceiling. This is the situation in context. China had, in 2021, planted 169,000 acres of marijuana, and they made 1.2 billion USD in returns. Now, here is China that has given us 9 trillion in terms of debt, meaning already we are spending China's marijuana money in our projects. So if you do the math, 169 acres only giving 1.2 billion. And we have Kulalu Galana, 1 million. It was a 1 million acre project that failed, we know, for obvious reasons. So why should we take handouts from China, which is marijuana money, at high interest, yet we have arable land, yet we have the labor that is there, we have youths who are unemployed. I think it's about time we decolonize the minds of our people.
So even if we move away from the marijuana conversation,
yes,
which other ways are you going to plug this gap? Because there's a lot of manufacturing that comes into this. There's also, in terms of infrastructure or development, that comes into this. You cannot base your economic agenda on just marijuana.
No.
Right? So what else is there?
It's not only marijuana.
Okay, so
we
that's
have 12
one
points.
What's the
We are
next?
also introducing snake farming in this country.
Snake farming?
Yes, so that we can actually extract poison, snake poison, for purposes of medication. A lot of people are bitten by snakes in this country, and you have to wait for snake doses from outside the country through pharmaceutical corporations. We have so many snakes in this country, and we have so many snake eaters like the Chinese. One of the ways that you are going to offset of their debt is by taking these snakes, putting them, extracting the poison, and then manufacturing into snake medicine, and then giving the Chinese the rest to eat so that you can tell them to offset of the debt.
And what's the third?
That's one of that.
Okay.
That's
what's the third?
The third one, actually, is coming in and sitting down with Kenyans and looking into modern methods of farming, agroeconomic economy.
Okay.
We want to look into wheat farming. We want to look into domestic farming in terms of the domestic consumables that we have, though they don't yield very high in the market. We have poultry, we have milk, we have dairy farming. We have so many methods. We have also other things that we can do, that we are going to do to subsidize what we have. But the main agenda that we have today, besides the economic infrastructure that we are looking into, is to do what we can do very quickly and offset of the debt in this country.
Okay. So, Justina, let me bring you into this. So how do you intend to reduce the cost of living? It was one of the main things that was talked about in the opinion poll, which both of you have just trashed. But it is a concern for the Kenyans. How do you intend to cushion them or reduce the cost of living?
Like I said, hemp is the core center of our agenda. Once we get the returns of hemp, selling hemp and exporting it, we are not going to increase taxes. Remember, tax is akin to whatever, when they tax the Kenyan and the Kenyan doesn't even have money, they are really, it's making Kenyans feel very uncomfortable. Look at when you buy tokens for 100 shillings, electricity tokens, you're told that you get 6 units at the cost of 48 shillings, but 52 shillings goes into tax. That is the impact of taxes. Another thing, the debt. the debt as it is, Kenyans are told, the Parliamentary Budget Office actually advised government not to start repaying domestic debt now because it's going to annoy Kenyans. Of course, I think being an electioneering year, they don't want to annoy the Kenyans. But when it gets to that point, they also advise Treasury that the debt ceiling, raising it will be a risk. So the cost of living the high cost of living is due to increase of taxes and increase of debt. But when we have our own marijuana, we won't need to tax Kenyans as a source of funding. We won't need external debt at high interest as a source of funding. We will have our own money. And let me speak into devolution. Devolution, as it is, they get 15% from the national government, which many times it doesn't reach 15%. Our idea as Roots government is to organize these counties back into the 8 provinces. Of course, this is a discussion you're going to have because we've said you're going to suspend the constitution, parts of it, for 6 months. The counties organize themselves into the former 8 provinces. If it's central, they decide whether they want a chief governor. It's up to them. But what we're saying, those counties in that particular region come together and say, we have brought this from Kiambu, we have brought this from Murang'a, we have brought this from Nyeri. They decide how they are going to appropriate their revenue. But then they keep their money and they plan for it. They can only give us 10% for administrative purposes because already national government will have its own income from exportation of industrial hemp. Actually, now we're calling it industrial hemp because we are focusing on the commercialization of it, aspect of it. So when we look at this marijuana thing and industrial hemp, it's speaking into very many aspects of our manifesto. We also have Roots Care. Roots Care says that as it is, because we'll have the money, we're explaining where we're going to get the money, we're going to give free medical care to the old, vulnerable, and pregnant women. But we go on and say that this money that is used in hospital, we can use it into other aspects when Kenyans are not sick. We don't want to lead a sick nation. So we are going to bring back the organic foods that we usually eat. Like right now, you see when you go into supermarkets, 2 liters of cooking oil goes for 851 shillings. Why don't we do away with that seed oil and use oil from the hemp? Because that is a product. You can use it. It is healthy. It's not going to bring metabolic diseases like cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure. So our manifesto, legalizing hemp, speaks into more of what you're going to do for this country. And let me tell you, Trevor, as it is, leadership and being in presidency has 2 aspects. It has the hard and the soft. The hard being legislations and regulations. Okay. But the soft aspect is about changing mindsets, changing attitudes. And when you speak into the minds and hearts of the Kenyans, where we know, we tell them we are not going to increase taxes, we are not going to increase debt, which results into high cost of living. I believe I speak for everyone. For example, look at our youth. And I'm going to give my life history. I'm 35 years. I graduated from Daystar in 2010. And I did a master's in JKLIVE in 2014 in procurement. All those 2 advancements in education have been funded by my parents. I have never been employed because every time when you're a graduate, you're told, oh, get 5 years experience. Where is this graduate going to get a job? Where is he going to get the experience without the opportunity to work? Sadly, even getting internship, which is a requirement for graduation, is a challenge. So when we speak about industrializing this hemp, there is going to be manufacturing. We are going to create more opportunities for employment. And the youth our idea is, if it's Kulalu Galana, we can allocate like 200 acres, being 1 million acres, and say we are going to have the youth plant it. That's a youth project. Yeah. They plant it in cohorts. Remember, marijuana or industrial hemp takes 4 months to grow. So this cohort, once you're going to do an interview and get the right candidates who are compelled to do it, they go into the 200 acres. They plant it. Yeah. They have employment at that time. Okay. They're going to get the proceeds. Then it's going to give them income or capital to start a business or to start investment in the 9 sectors that use hemp, which produces over 25,000 products. Okay. So the market is large.
When you say suspend the constitution, what do you mean?
Well, we have countries that don't have written constitutions. We have countries like Israel, New Zealand, Canada, and UK. They don't have written constitutions. They work on conventions. Their approach to constitutionalism is on day-to-day activities, on what happens, and they look at the previous pronouncements by academics, previous pronouncements by the courts, and then they blend themselves into the suitability that is suitable for the time that the issue is being implemented. But Kenya has got a constitution of more than 264 pages, whereas as compared to the US, which has only a constitution of 8 pages, you'll find out that the US constitution has only been amended 14 times. And every time there is an amendment, there is also a consensus between people as to what happens, and the checking of what ought to be implemented goes under what we call the system applies very high scrutiny. And the person who wants an implementation, an amendment be done as per the Constitution must show legitimate expectation. But in Kenya, Kenya has become a land of too much regulations, too many rules, like we have seen on the IBC, where the Constitution says 2,000 signatures for a presidential candidate per county. If you go into regulations, the regulation says, in addition, you have to have 2,000 signatures from registered voters. Now, which one is which? Is it the Constitution, or is it the regulating act that has locked out my brothers and sisters from running for the presidency in this country? Now, do we want now to look at that law and keep it senile, or do we need to look at the Constitution again, relook at the Constitution? And before we look into the Constitution, we need to find out what has gone wrong in the 3 arms of government. We need to find out where there is massive corruption in the courts. We need to find out where some judges should not be hanged, because we are also going to go into for the death penalty, which will be part of what we shall be asking Kenyans. There's too much corruption. There's too much corruption in all arms of government, with the leading being the judiciary. So we need to ask Kenyans to look into that and say, do we really need this kind of judiciary system? Or do we need to change the regulations? Do we need to look at what has happened in Sierra Leone? And as a result of coups after coups and what have you, what have the Sierra Leoneans done with the previous written constitution? Yeah. They came up and they said, well, we've had enough of these copied constitutions, and every time something happens, there is a coup. Let us go into the people-oriented constitution so that we relate back to what we were before the colonials came into the country. Okay. The constitution in Kenya, I mean, I'm not angel to judge, but I can speak by practical examples in that the judges have become a very big stumbling block to democracy in this country. You'll find a case like Chickengate, the IBC case of Chickengate, which we had both sides of the coin, those in UK and those in Kenya that were implemented in that, were actually named in that. Those in the UK were tried. Yeah. And then those were sentenced, and they served their sentence, and they're out scotch-free. In Kenya, it's just prolongation. Yeah. There's an argument between, there's hostility between the executive and the judiciary and parliament. The president has become a lame duck. He can't do anything. Whenever he wants to do something, somebody runs to the constitution, to the courts, bribes those judges. And I can say with the legitimate authority that some of the pronouncements that are being made today by the so-called judges, especially like now what you see between Kinoti and Haji, where a judge comes in and says, no, 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 no. From today, it is Haji who is going to make the charge sheet. Where are you leaving the police? Okay. So all this kind of thing, we need Kenyans to look into them and say, well, what went wrong with us? And first of all, you remember when I talked about the people in suits, I always wear them anyway, who have that mentality of a suit boy, who go outside there to copy what a white man has done in a suit, who comes in and is told, come on, can we look into this and can you go out there and find out? He wears his suit and comes back with what suits him in his suit. Okay. To reinforce that on Kenyans without giving Kenyans ample time. All right. That's wrong. So we are going to ask Kenyans that look into this constitution. Looking at the constitution. Take away what you don't like. Okay. But we as a government would like also to suggest this to you. Yeah. We need a death penalty. Because if in Japan, for example,
Yeah.
if you suspect yourself to be corrupt, you hang yourself. You commit suicide. In China, if you are suspected to be a corrupt person, you are tried and hanged. In Europe, you go to jail. But in Kenya, you go to parliament.
So you, so your proposal of dealing with corruption, Prof,
Is death penalty.
and that has to come back through a referendum then, so that Kenyans
Well,
will decide.
well, when we suspend the constitution, we shall not have a lot of things. I will be a president. I will be an iron fist president, not a dictator, but an iron fist president who wants the economy of the country to move, who wants Kenya to move, to restore itself to where the late President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was, so that we get things moving from there, where we become the pearl of economic activities number one pearl of economy in this continent.
Yeah.
Just like when we lent money to Singapore in 1966, when we lent money to Malaysia in 1966.
Yeah.
Those two countries have become superpowers,
Okay.
and we are still down there in the bottom.
Okay, but even if you're going with the death penalty, which Kenyans will then have to decide, there's the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. There's the court of law process that you're allowed to appeal. How then will you decide that this person is guilty, or will you allow the court process to take its course?
Yes, that's what I said, due process. Not just being a dictator, I said...
Will you give a timeline for this?
Well, yes. I mean, people will have to be tried. They will have to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And if they find themselves guilty, they will be hanged by the hemp fiber. If not, then there's a place in Taita Taveta where some people used to be thrown in the cliff. There will be no way out. Zero tolerance on corruption. I'm sorry I took over from her.
I'd like to hear your views as well on this, on how to deal with corruption.
When people are corrupt, what compels people to be corrupt? And by the way, Kenyans, we have not stolen anything from Kenyans. And we are telling you that we do not have the colossal amount of money, listen to our idea and vote for change. But when people steal from Kenyans, they're stealing the visions, the aspirations, they're stealing healthcare. Those are people who do not care about Kenyans. They don't care about the future of Kenya. So when they go through the process and they are guilty, we have no alternative. We want to instill the fear that public resources must be respected. But allow me to add on to something. As a woman. There's a lady who said that her son has just lost focus.
Yeah.
The agenda of Roots Party is to have a country that is productive. We do not want stoners. And how we are going to distinguish the marijuana or the industrial hemp? There are two components in industrial hemp or marijuana. One is the CBD, which gives the fiber or industrial hemp that we want. And two is the THC, the one that gives you the psychoactive ingredient that Kenyans are smoking now. So how are we going to control it? We are going to use institutions like KEBS, like KEFI, so in charge of plant health, to have seeds or seeds that are focusing on the regulations that we have, 0.3 component of THC, so that we can yield more of industrial hemp. And when you even pluck that CBD component and chew the leaves, the only thing it can do to your body is detox. Actually, Kenyans, if you Google right now, for hemp seeds sales in Kenya, they are sold. Those seeds are good for, they have, they have nutrients like omega-3. Those things are in the market, the products already in the market. And people know them. It's only that we have been made to believe that marijuana is bad. And that is why when Bob Marley sang for us the song, you told us to emancipate ourselves from mental what? Emancipated, yes, mental slavery.
That's a reggae song.
Yes. So that is what we are trying to do as Roots Party. Okay. And when I speak like this, I speak as a mother. I want the best for my children. So we are not out here to make Kenyans lose focus, but we are here to empower Kenyans. The real pesa mfukoni. Again, for women on our agenda.
Yeah.
Women are not homogeneous. We have baby girls, young mothers, single women. And one thing that is what we need as a factor of production in this is land. Many a times land is owned by men. This is Africa. But there are single women who own their own land. there was this boom that came that, yeah, buy land for speculative purposes, you're going to resell it. So many single women have their own land that is idle. So we are going to give them the option of growing marijuana and selling it to government. That money you get from there, you can achieve your dream of building the flat that you want. And for married women, I'm married, and they always say, like Nancy Pelosi used to tell us, I really listened to her interviews. She says that her husband gives her direction and advice. So we are telling the women, being married, most of the time you co-own property with your husband. So ours is to appeal to the men, listen to the pillow talks that you're having with your wife, and give them, even if it's 1% of the land that they own, so that women can have their own money. This issue of women saying, I stay at home, my husband doesn't pay me, just give her 1% of the land. And then also for daughters, we have fathers, uncle, grandfathers, give your daughters 1% of the land so that we can empower her financially.
Okay.
That is real empowerment for the women.
Prof, when are you launching your manifesto?
On the 2nd of June.
So how many agendas do you have?
Well, we have everybody. What do you mean?
What are your key points?
Well, we have 12 points in our
Okay.
stuff, and we haven't spoken about employment, 4 days work.
We're actually going to unemployment in just a bit.
Yeah, we are launching, and we shall let Kenyans know. We shall have the likes of Mbuzi and Lion and our friends from Yaman coming in and emancipating themselves through freedom.
When are you launching?
On the 2nd of June.
2nd of June or July, because we're on the 8th of June now. So July, that's next month.
Yes.
Okay, you're going through the agendas.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned unemployment. How do you want to deal with that?
Yes, we are also looking into, and first of all, I must thank the British government. They have just entered into my head and Christina's head, just like the Belgians did. They came and stole my dream, the way the president of Zimbabwe stole my dream and went ahead and legalized marijuana. The British last week came up to experiment what we said in Kenya. You know, Kenya always leads. That's why we've had Obama. And they like stealing. They even stole the East African community motto. They started that. They have come up with 4-day experimental basis, 4 working day. You remember when we started, we said that we are going to have Kenyans to work for 4 days a week. Fridays will be holiday, and within the 4 working days, we shall have a 24-hour working economy. Then we shall have 8-hour shifts, and people will be paid every 2 weeks, which means that we shall have increased production of labor. From one person working from 8 to 9, we shall have people to work in shifts of 8 hours per shift. I'm sorry, some people are crazy.
I know those are your supporters trying to call you.
Yeah, and they are seeing me live, and then you see how people, So
you're talking about the 4 days working and 3 days holiday.
Yes, so we shall have a 24-hour working economy in 4 days a week, 8 hours shift, so that people can work for 96 hours instead of 72, which means that we shall increase production from 1 person in a day to 3 people, so that they can have Friday to replenish. We shall have, so that we can also give Muslims the right to have their Christmas, their day off. Because if you look at the law as it is today, and you look at the Constitution as it is today, it's very discriminatory when it comes to religious freedoms. You'll find out that Muslims who are supposed to worship on Friday only worship for a time, only go to the mosque when they're supposed to be doing other things. When they're doing other things, like those who work for the government, have to go to the mosque instead of going for lunch. So Muslims we shall be the first country in Africa to let Muslims to rest on Friday, single parents and co-parenting parents, so that they can have that time to replenish. COVID has really shown us how to do things. Okay. During COVID times, people used to work from home. People did a lot of things. And with modern technology, we shall have to really ease the financial burdens. Instead of somebody traveling from Kiambu to Nairobi to work, if it will depend on the conducibility and feasibility of the arrangement where people can work from home using internet and what have you. Okay. So we shall have a 4-day working economy, 24-hour, 8-hour shift with increased production, so that Muslims can go to the church, to the mosque on Friday, Seventh-day can go to the church on Saturday, and Christians can go on Sunday, with the Rastafarians also choosing in between whatever they want.
Okay.
That's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3. Number 4, we, as Justina said, we want to go into regional governments. We want to restructure devolution by empowering regions to have parliamentary systems so that they can actually legislate on what they want, especially after collecting revenue. If you look at Rift Valley, for example, if we return the older Rift Valley, and you have Rift Valley state composed of counties with parliament in Nakuru, with sources of revenue like, let me say, Narok, they have wheat, they have tourism, and they have livestock. If you go to Nakuru, we have got agricultural farm outputs like potatoes and what have you, so that whatever is actually resourced from counties and sold, let the state government in Nakuru decide as to how much money they will appropriate for and inject back for economic development in their area, and then just give little to the federal government, which will be used to source out instrumentalities in terms of, like, for example, if there is a joining factor, a railway joining and passing through other states, which will be the prerogative of the federal government, let that money be used by the government to maintain those kind of infrastructures.
Okay.
In addition to that also, we want to depopulate Nairobi by probably also suggesting to Kenyans and moving the capital city to have a new administrative city in Isiolo, where you have very big, vast land where you can have development, so that we can leave Nairobi for industrial development. Tanzania has moved their administrative capital to Dodoma, as well as Nigeria moving to the Abuja. And devolution is taking place for economic purposes. Nairobi land is overburdened today. You'll find out that areas which were meant for particular categories of development, like Lavington and Karen, you find out that the demarcation policy was 2 acres. But now there's too much overpopulation, and in the absence of infrastructure, we can see what's happening in Nairobi.
Okay.
Congestion and what have you. So we are planning ahead, and we want actually to make Kenya a happy place for Kenyans to travel freely, so that the people of Isiolo and those people who are up there, instead of them coming down to Nairobi, they can work out. Another issue we are looking into is privatization. We need a privatized economy. The issue of agriculture, for example, we have had a lot of problems with maize farming. We have had a lot of problems with the infrastructure in terms of no subsidies for farmers, where we have things going weird.
Yeah.
If we privatize agriculture and you have competitors coming in, the sense of production will be very high. We shall have competition, competitive markets. And then this issue of the monopoly, we shall have to do away with it. Like we intend, actually, if possible, if you pay off the Chinese, or if they don't want it, want them to uproot their small metal from Mombasa to Naivasha, because it has put Kenyans into tears. We have had Kenyan businessmen who employed over 1 million porters, 1 million drivers, to actually work on transportation of goods from Mombasa port to the interior of Africa. Those instruments of commerce have now fallen grey, and the businessmen who were actually in transportation business, and as a result of monopoly, have been put out of work.
Okay.
Loans, people have defaulted in loan payment, and there's a lot of tears in this country.
All right.
I'm going to ban that port. How do we call it? Dry port? We need a real port, and we need Mombasa people to have their own port. We need Muslims to go to to have their own freedom on Friday. We need Kenyans to have freedom to work freely, to be paid well, to have enough money from the marijuana product.
All right. I have to take a quick break here on JKL Live. When you come back, some of your questions, there are quite a number of them. We'll pose them to the presidential candidates. They're still with me here, Professor George Wajackoyah and Justina Wangoi-Wamai, the Roots Party presidential team. They have their own views. We'd like to hear your views as well. See you in just a bit.